Polling stations closed in Argentina's legislative elections. 91% of the votes have been counted. Preliminary Together for Change obtains the majority in the lower house and in the Senate. Moving on to Bolivia, violent groups belonging to the Cruceñista Youth Union have attacked a popular neighborhood in Santa Cruz and ratified the calls for a strike and protests. And Bulgaria is headed to the polls to elect a new parliament and a new president amid a surge of coronavirus infections. Hello, welcome to teleSUR English. I am Stefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. Polling stations in Argentina have closed. 92% of the votes have been counted so far. The National Electoral Chamber announced that the turnout exceeds 71%. Preliminary Together for Change obtained the majority in the lower house and in the Senate. The polling entity disclosed it expected attendance to be higher than the primary elections 2 months ago, when the health situation in the country due to the coronavirus pandemic affected the mass appearances in the voting stations. The Electoral Chamber informed that the process has been carried out without any incidents. And President Alberto Fernandez voted at a polling station located in Puerto Madero neighborhood. He said that the electoral process was being carried out under normal conditions and with absolute calm.
And what we ask the Argentinians the most is that they go and express themselves so we can build the country we want, and that is the objective. What we want is the people to express themselves today and do it with all their strength, with all their conviction.
And meanwhile, the candidates of the Together for Change shared their traditional breakfast at Croque Madame in the Porteño neighborhood of Recoleta, led by the candidate for national legislator Maria Eugenia Vidal and the head of government of Buenos Aires, Horacio Rodríguez Larreta. Vidal said that if everyone listens to the people's vote, both the government and the opposition will be able to do their job well. Larreta voted after 9 o'clock at the law school and cautiously said that the electoral ban must be respected. She also welcomed the correct functioning of the electoral day. And citizens in Argentina reacted to election day.
It's all good. I just voted. It was all perfect.
With a lot of happiness. This is a vote I was deprived of for many years due to generational issues, so every time I vote, I feel extremely happy. It's all good. We're happy for this day that democracy gives us, for we can vote and defend democracy. That is the most important thing we have.
It's all good. I'm very happy. Everything was okay. I was allowed in for being a senior, so I have nothing to say. Actually, they were all very caring. I'll watch the results at home with my family.
It's all quiet and normal. I have priority, so no problem. I'm going to do my duties and spend a normal day.
We have more reactions from Argentinians participating in this election day. Let's have a look.
I am a foreigner and I have the chance to vote. I have decided already who I vote for, and this is the first time I will elect parliament members, so I'm very happy.
Good, it's all quiet. Actually, I thought there would be many more people. I just arrived because I have a radio show, so I finished and came along. So I am from a Paraguayan community, and I participate all the time in this civic day. We're going to follow it minute by minute to see what happens. Perfect. I'm doing the work of a table validator. In my case, at the table I'm sitting, which is 1282, we're going through this pretty fast, and I don't see many problems, at least here at Roca. It's quiet. I was here last time and there were chairs with numbers and a lot of people. They were desperate. Today I see it all quiet. It's working. I hope that my candidate progresses.
It's okay. Actually, not too many people. The other time I came there were a lot of folks, and now I am surprised that I was able to vote this fast. I don't know if they won't come or it is that they will arrive later. Every time I vote, I never win, so I hope this time I do. But anyway, I want someone to be the best choice, and that he can place himself in everybody's shoes, and that he sees the situation we are going through, and that he works for everybody, not just for the rich, but even more for the poor. But anyway, that's it. It's all quiet. I did not have to wait much, 20 minutes at the most. Compared to other times, I'm not too keen on this, but my husband does love politics, so yes, we certainly do.
And let's now review the context in which Argentinians arrived to this important election.
This Sunday's elections are crucial for the stability of the ruling party's governance for the next 2 years. After losing the majority in 18 out of 24 districts in September's primaries, including the autonomous cities of Buenos Aires, President Alberto Fernandez's coalition Front for All must strive to win the general legislative elections of November 14. The path to the elections has been marked by three main issues: the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the country's economic situation inherited from a previous administration, and the debts with the International Monetary Fund. During the Fernandez administration, the Argentinian economy encountered the aftermaths of a pandemic, which caused it to drop by 9.9% in 2020, completing 3 years of recession. Despite this, Fernandez's administration has managed to halt COVID-19 contagions and fully vaccinate over 60% of the population. In regards to the IMF debt, President Fernandez had this to say as the electoral campaign period came to a close.
Now we have to resolve the debt that they have left us with the International Monetary Fund. Of course, we have to resolve it. But I tell you, I am not going to solve it in 5 minutes, because whoever solved this problem in 5 minutes has given the fund the reason for everything they are asking for. And I give the reason to you, not to the fund. So I will take as much time as I need to find the best agreement for the Argentine people.
Following the results of the primaries in September, several government figures presented their resignations. The Minister of Interior, Minister of Science and Technology, the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Territorial Development and Habitat, the Minister of Culture, all presented their resignation, sparking then a situation of political crisis in Buenos Aires. The entire cabinet of ministers offered their resignation to Governor Axel Kicillof, the Executive Director of the National Social Security Administration, and the Executive Director of the state's Comprehensive Medical Care Program for retirees and pensioners also offered their resignation. Argentinian social movements led by Movimiento Evita expressed their support to President Alberto Fernandez amid the internal crisis that broke out among the different sectors that make up the government coalition. They mobilized under the slogans Fuerza Alberto and for the unity of the Front for All. Over 101,000 polling stations are open for Argentinians to vote. The nation's foreign minister said more than 385,000 Argentinian citizens abroad can exercise their right to vote in these elections. Polls open at 8 a.m. local time and will close at 6 p.m. local time. However, if any voter is inside a voting center or outside in line after the closing hour, he or she will be able to vote. Results are expected to be very close in these elections. The opposition, Together for Change Alliance, seeks to control the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate in the second half of President Alberto Fernandez's term of office.
We're taking our one short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. The National Electoral Council of Venezuela advanced in the process of auditing voting machines 1 week before the regional and municipal elections of November 21st. During the audit, Pedro Calzadilla, president of the council, guided the tour through the production lines. He also asserted that 0.5% of the voting machines are being audited so as to farm more guarantees and security for the Venezuelan people. Calzadilla highlighted the importance of Plan República in the electoral process and repudiated several terrorist attacks aimed at destabilizing the country in the face of the elections. He also stated that 89% of the electoral timetable is completed and that the electoral campaign will finish next Thursday at midnight.
We are ready, everything is ready, so that on November 21st, The people of Venezuela will once again freely gather at the voting centers and exercise their own sovereignty and popular will.
And Casadilla also condemned the intended terrorist attack on the sheds of the National Electoral Council located in rows of Mariche in the state of Miranda.
We, from the National Electoral Council, want to reject these type of actions. We call upon all the citizens, the people of Venezuela, to be alert. This was just an attempt, and it is under investigation.
In Bolivia, in spite of the agreement of the abrogation of the Bill 1386, which was approved by President Luis Arce, violent groups belonging to the Cruceñista Youth Union, a violent opposition organization, have attacked a popular neighborhood in Santa Cruz and ratified the calls for a strike and protest. The incidents are reported in the area known as Plan 3000, a housing development made up mostly of Bolivians from the Altiplano. According to the complaint filed by members of the Movement Towards Socialism, a group of dozens of people identified as part of the opposition Santa Cruz Youth Union attacked neighborhoods, leaving several injured in an atmosphere of violence and racism. Hours before, local residents had publicly expressed their opposition to the decision to sustain the strike called by the Santa Cruz Civic Committee despite the abrogation of the Bill 1386.
We categorically reject the attitude of Rómulo Calvo, another one that becomes an enemy of the people of Santa Cruz, because he hires the Palomillos, he hires the Maleantos, to edit what is a criminal civic strike that at this moment is massacring the people of Santa Cruz. For that reason, we reject categorically his action. The population is in a state of emergency. We reject what is a criminal civic strike.
Moving on to Peru now, the government of President Pedro Castillo has set itself the goal of obtaining concrete results in the dialogue between employers and workers after a layoff imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic. In order to accomplish this, the government has reactivated the National Employment Promotion Council. To this end, the president held an event at the government house where he urged the sides of the social labor dialogue to maintain the will to bring welfare to all Peruvians. The president asked businessmen not to echo the campaign of lies against them and to invest in the country, thus generating jobs and the conditions necessary for the legalization of investments. And in the midst of a critical moment experienced at Ecuador's prisons, inmates of 2 prisons started a hunger strike due to the extreme insecurity they live in. They also did it in solidarity with those who were murdered this Friday at the prison of Guayaquil after a deadly riot that left 68 deaths and several injured. Prisoners from the detention center in Azuay and Cotopaxi provinces made the decision, which was later confirmed by the National Service of the Imprisoned of Ecuador, who had reported that a group of people refused to eat food in protest. From inside the correctional facility, several inmates sent messages through social media requesting help from the authorities, as well as videos and images that showed the complex scenario experienced and even some of the murders. Moving on to Honduras, Francisco Gaitán, the mayor of the municipality of Cantarranas, was killed this Saturday during a rally. Preliminary information indicated that a man shot the politician who was running for re-election for the upcoming November 28th general elections. According to a preliminary police report, Gaitán was on a political campaign in San Luis when he was shot by a drunk man. He was later arrested by sympathizers of the Liberal Party and handed over to police forces. The death of Francisco Gaitán occurred when he was in the middle of the campaign for the elections to be held in 2 weeks, with the participation of 14 other political parties. Hundreds of citizens from Cantarranas took to the streets to protest the crime and to demand justice. The presumed murderer, named Wilfrido Velázquez, is in custody of the police, who are carrying out the pertinent investigations. Brazil's inflation rate soared to an annualized high of 10.67% in October, highlighting challenges the central bank faces to rein in price as citizens struggle to survive the fiscal crisis. The October inflation rate was the highest since the country's worst ever economic recession in 2016, said the country's national statistics agency, the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics. The institute data shows that prices of the daily necessities necessities from water, electricity, and gas to food, beverage, and travel and dining services have significantly increased by 20 to 85% within a year. The latest data also showed that the unemployment rate in Brazil still hovers at least 13%, while the average annual income nationwide has fallen by 10% so far this year, the biggest drop since 2012.
In my circumstance, I have to up my workload by 20% to 30% to make up for the inflation, at very least. But I am in the service sector. It's not that easy to find work these days.
In Syria, the Ministry of Health received this Sunday a batch of 500,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine donated by the People's Republic of China. The Minister of Health, Hassan Al-Gobash, informed that the batch is part of the continuation of vaccines sent by the Chinese government that seeks to support the Arab country in the plan of immunization against the new coronavirus. The official also stressed that to date only 5% of the population has been vaccinated in the country. We're taking our second break now. Join us again after this. Died after 2 over 6 degrees earthquake struck southern Iran on Sunday. The 6.4 and 6.3 magnitude earthquakes, with just 90 seconds between them, had their epicenter hit at a depth of 15 kilometers in Hormozgan province, according to the Iranian Seismological Center. So far, the Iranian Red Crescent registered as the only fatal victim a 22-year-old man that was killed by a falling electricity roll. Iran's deadliest quake was a 7.4 magnitude tremor that struck in 1990, killing 40,000 people in the north of the country. And the last voters put their ballots in the ballot box, and election officials began counting votes in Bulgaria's third general election this year as the country fights its deadliest coronavirus wave. An anti-graft party was in neck-and-neck race with the Conservatives, according to exit polls on Sunday. We Continue the Change, led by the two Harvard-educated former businessmen, garnered 23% of the vote, just below nearly 25% of three-time Premier Bojo Borisov's Citizen for European Development of Bulgaria party. Analysts have said they expect parties to try hard to form a government to end the political crisis, highlighting the need to tackle the raging pandemic.
I hope that this time at last we'll have a regular government. Overall, I expect to have a different result now, even if deep down all parties are from the same kind, and the new ones do not offer much of a different choice, but just some diversification.
I hope to have a normal parliament, a normal government, and a normal president, because if we continue to divide, you know what happens with a bundle of sticks. They break if you separate them, but not if they stay together. So I hope we stay more united.
The Italian Coast Guard rescued over 300 young men and boys, mostly from Egypt, in heavy storms as their fishing boat floundered off the coast of Calabria on Saturday night. In an operation that finished at dawn on Sunday morning, the Coast Guard rescue team made 3 trips out of the fishing boat, where they transferred groups of migrants to their rescue boat and brought them to port barefoot, drenching and shivering. The Calabrian coast has seen a surge of migrant arrivals in the past few months, but the region is still not equipped, like the ports in Sicily, to handle big numbers. The migrants were transferred to a recently built shelter with a capacity to hold 120 people. So far this year, over 57,000 migrants have arrived in Italy by sea.
At 1 a.m., we were advised that about 300 migrants could be arriving. So the Red Cross, along with other authorities that are responsible for handling the disembarkation on the pier, we activated and came down here to the port. We prepare, as well do all the time, not with all the protective gear. We welcome the migrants, giving the face masks, blankets, and other things they needed, and we transferred them to our tent structure.
The COP26 ended with the Glasgow Pact agreed after last-minute negotiations. The COP26 climate talks have agreed to get countries to strengthen their emissions cutting targets for 2030 by the end of next year in a bid to limit dangerous warming. The Glasgow Pact was watered down at the last minute following a push by India and China, prompting angry responses from European and vulnerable countries. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres told young people, indigenous communities, and women leaders, all those leading the Climate Action Army, that he knew many of them were going to be disappointed.
I think today we can say with credibility that we have kept 1.5 degrees within reach, but its pulse is weak. And it will only survive if we keep our promises, if we translate commitments into rapid action, and if we deliver on the expectations set out in this Glasgow Climate Pact to increase ambition to 2030 and beyond.
The UN chief, Antonio Guterres, said the world was still on the precipice of a catastrophe after nations reached a global climate deal Saturday that fell short of what science says is needed to contain dangerous warming.
The approved texts are a compromise. They reflect the interests, the conditions, the contradictions, and the state of political will in the world today. They take important steps, but unfortunately, the collective political will was not enough to overcome some deep contradictions. As I said at the opening, we must accelerate action to keep the 1.5-degree goal alive. Our fragile planet is hanging by a thread. We are still knocking on the door of climate catastrophe. It's time to go into emergency mode, or our chance of reaching net zero will itself be zero.
Nicaragua was elected to serve as the Vice President of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP26, representing Latin America and the Caribbean regions. The country's Vice Minister of Environment and Natural Resources, Javier Gutierrez, was chosen unanimously for the position in recognition of the Central American nation's work in the fight against climate change and the national policies for the preservation of Mother Earth and climate justice. And in Guatemala, heavy flooding affected homes, crops, and roads in several communities in the municipality of Chisec, Alta Verapaz. According to the authorities of the National Coordinator for Disaster Reduction, the floods have greatly affected the rural communities of Carolina, Chubut, and Mukbilha. They also informed that at the moment, the municipality officials are carrying out the pertinent evaluations to know the magnitude of the damages caused, and in the next few hours, they expect to provide details. These floods occur 1 year after the passage of storms Ira and Iota in 2020. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net.